picture this. You're driving home from work, maybe running a few errands. The sun is going down, and your low fuel light dings. We have all been there.
Oh, yeah,
You
definitely.
pull up to your local gas station, the one that has that massive, towering, brightly lit sign displaying the prices like a beacon. You pull in, and it's just packed.
Right. Cars everywhere?
Yeah, cars lined up at every single one of the 10 pumps. And as you're standing there in the cold or maybe the sweltering heat, watching those numbers spin on the digital display, you
Yeah.
start doing the quick mental math.
Which is always a dangerous game.
It is.
Mm.
Because if they're selling hundreds, maybe like thousands of gallons an hour at $3 plus a pump, this place has to be an absolute cash cow. It seems like the ultimate foolproof business. Everybody needs gas.
It is an incredibly common assumption to make. You look at that constant guaranteed traffic, the sheer volume of liquid moving through those hoses, and you assume it's just a license to print money. The visual evidence tells your brain that the owner's getting rich. But the reality operating behind that digital display is completely different.
And that is exactly our mission for today's deep dive. We are going to shatter what we're calling the retail illusion of the gas station. We're pulling back the curtain on the real economics of what actually happens when you fill up your tank.
Because it really is an illusion.
It is.
Yeah.
Because the business you are participating in when you swipe your card at the pump is stranger, it's far more fragile, and it operates on a totally different set of rules than it appears from the street.
Yeah, and to start breaking this down, I need to drop what might be a massive paradigm shift for you. That fuel you're buying, the stuff you specifically drove there to get, the liquid that literally gives the entire business its name.
Yeah.
To the people who actually own and operate that station, the fuel is practically an afterthought.
Okay, let's unpack this, because my immediate reaction is you are crazy.
I get that a lot.
The word gas is literally in the name of the business. I have never once in my life pulled into a gas station just because I had a sudden burning desire for a bag of Cool Ranch chips.
Right, you're there for the fuel.
The gas is the entire reason I'm there. How can the core product, the entire reason the physical facility was built, be an afterthought to the guy selling it to me?
Well, to understand the mindset of the owner, we have to follow the money. We need to track a single gallon of gasoline from the moment you pay for it and see whose pockets are actually getting lined.
Okay, let's do it.
Let's do the math on a theoretical $3.11 gallon of gas. When you pay that amount, the money splinters into a dozen different directions, and almost none of it stays at the station.
Wow, really?
Yeah. Right off the top, about 60% of that price goes directly to the cost of crude oil, paying the companies pulling it out of the ground. Another 9% goes to the refining process, the massive industrial facilities, cooking that crude sludge into something your car's engine can actually combust.
Yeah. Wait, so almost 70% of my money is gone before the fuel even gets put on a delivery truck?
Exactly. And then the government takes its cut. And they take it without assuming any of the physical risk of storing or selling the fuel.
Right, they just tax it.
State and federal taxes average about 50 to 60 cents per gallon. But depending on where you're driving right now, your local government might be taking a much more aggressive slice. In some states, like California or Illinois, taxes account for nearly 90 cents of every single gallon you pump.
Wait, if the government is taking anywhere from 50 to 90 cents a gallon, they're making significantly more money on my fill-up than the person who actually owns the physical gas station.
By a massive margin. But the government isn't the only invisible partner taking a slice of the pie. We also have to factor in the banks.
Oh, right, the credit cards.
Every time you swipe a credit card at the pump, the swipe fees eat up about 8 cents a gallon. So by the time you account for the raw oil, the complex refining, the taxes, the freight trucks, and the bank fees, the station owner is left with a gross margin of maybe 30 to 35 cents a gallon.
And that 35 cents hasn't even paid the station's bills yet. They still have to pay the cashier sitting behind the glass, keep those massive stadium-style canopy lights on, run the complex pumps, pay for environmental insurance, and maintain the facility.
Yeah, it's brutal. When all the dust settles, the net profit, the actual money that the owner gets to put in their bank account, is a meager 10 to 15 cents a gallon.
Let me just visualize this for a second, because the scale is absurd. Let's say I pull up and put 12 gallons in my car. That is roughly a $37 transaction.
Okay, yep.
If the owner is netting, let's be generous, 15 cents a gallon, they're making a total profit of $1.80 on my entire visit.
That's it, $1.80.
But wait, you mentioned the credit card fee was 8 cents a gallon. On 12 gallons, the bank is making almost $1, around 96 cents, on my fill-up. The bank, which literally did nothing but authorize a digital handshake through the ether, is making half as much, or sometimes even more, than the station owner who bought the land, built the station, purchased the gas, and maintained the pumps.
It's totally wild. And this razor-thin reality completely dictates the behavioral psychology you see on the street. It explains why station owners are absolutely obsessed with the price on their sign.
Because they have no wiggle room.
None. They are fighting a brutal, endless price war. In this industry, a difference of just 3 to 5 cents a gallon is enough to make a driver completely ignore your station, drive over a median, and pull into your competitor across the street.
Oh, totally. I've done that.
We all do it.
Yeah.
The owner is literally staring out their window with a cup of coffee, watching the sign across the street, terrified to be the most expensive option on the block.
Which perfectly explains that incredibly frustrating phenomenon that happens with gas prices. Like, when the morning news announces that the global price of oil went up, the price at my local pump jumps 20 cents by lunch.
Instantaneously.
But when the news says the price of oil plummeted, the price at the pump just creeps down a penny at a time over 3 agonizing weeks.
Yeah, economists actually have a specific term for that pattern. They call it the rockets and feathers effect.
Rockets and feathers. I like that.
It's very visual, and the mechanism behind it is pure survival. When wholesale costs go up, retail prices rocket upwards immediately because owners simply do not have the cash reserves or the margin to absorb the loss.
Right. If they don't raise the price today, they lose money on every gallon.
Exactly. But when wholesale costs fall, retail prices drop slowly, like a floating feather. The owners deliberately hold their prices up for as long as the local market competition will allow. They're desperately trying to recoup the margins they bled out during the wholesale spike.
Okay, I am starting to see why you called the fuel an afterthought. I mean, we have an owner who is fighting to the death over 3 pennies, scraping by on less than $2 a customer, while the banks and the government take the lion's share.
It sounds impossible, right?
It does. If station owners are just grinding it out on pennies, how does this business model survive at all?
Well, the answer requires you to stop looking at the pump, turn around, and walk through the automatic glass doors.
Into the store.
Yes. The entire financial survival of a gas station exists inside the convenience store. Let's look at the mismatch between revenue and profit. The fuel pumps outside generate over 67% of the station's total revenue.
Which looks like a ton of cash flowing through the business.
On paper, yeah. But those pumps contribute only 38.6% of the total gross profit. The convenience store inside, however, is the actual economic engine. It generates over 61% of the total profit for the entire business. We just established that fuel margins are hovering around 11% gross. But the margins on the items inside the store, they sit comfortably between 30 and 50%.
Here's where it gets really interesting. Let's look at what you're actually buying when you walk inside. You grab a cold can of soda out of the fridge. Wholesale, that can cost the owner about 40 cents.
Yep.
They sell it to you for $2. That is a 75% margin. You grab a bag of chips. That is an 83% margin.
And those are just the packaged goods. The ultimate profit driver, the undisputed king of the gas station business model, is freshly brewed coffee.
I knew it. It always comes back to coffee. But the math on that has to be wild.
Oh, it is. Think about the unit economics of a cup of coffee. It costs a station owner roughly 23 cents to produce. That includes the coffee beans, the hot water, the branded paper cup, and the plastic lid.
23 cents.
Yeah. In fact, the physical cup often costs them more than the liquid inside it. And they sell that cup to you for $3 to $5. We are talking about a gross margin of over 90%.
Oh, man. That makes me a little sick thinking about the $3 I spent on a burnt, lukewarm coffee this morning, knowing they made more net profit on that cup than the 15 gallons of premium fuel I just pumped into my car. A single cup of coffee beats an entire tank of gas.
It really does. It completely reframes how you should view the industry. Gas stations aren't energy companies distributing fossil fuels. They are convenience stores and restaurant chains that just happen to sell gas in the parking lot to get your attention.
Right.
Look at the massive chains that dominate the industry now. Brands like Wawa, Sheetz, or Casey's. They figured this out a long time ago. Casey's actually operates one of the largest pizza chains in the entire United States.
Really? Gas station pizza.
Yeah, they are a pizza and sandwich shop first and foremost. The food is the actual business. The fuel is just a giant glowing billboard designed to force you to pull over.
Okay, if the food is the core business, that totally explains the psychological engineering of the modern station. When you walk into one of these high-end stations, the layout is highly manipulative.
Oh, very deliberate.
The milk and the essentials are always in the very back, forcing you to walk past brightly lit aisles of high-margin snacks. The candy bars are strategically placed at eye level right by the register for the ultimate impulse buy.
Exactly.
The moment you cross that threshold, you aren't in a gas station anymore. You're in a highly optimized retail trap.
And building that trap requires a staggering amount of capital.
Right. Say you're listening to this and you think, I want in on this. I want to sell 90% margin bean water and pizza. Now that you know the real money is inside, you might be tempted to open your own station. But what does it actually cost to build this facility? And more importantly, what are the hidden dangers lying beneath the surface of that concrete parking lot?
Well, the barrier to entry is steep. If you just want to lease an existing location and take over the daily operations, you need between $250,000 to $300,000 in liquid capital.
Just to lease it.
Yeah. If you want to buy an existing station outright, meaning you own the land, the building, and the business, you're looking at anywhere from $500,000 to $2.5 million.
Okay, but what if I want to build one of those glowing, massive, brand new modern stations from the ground up?
Now you're entering the big leagues.
Yeah.
A new build costs between $2 million and $5 million.
Wow.
Just acquiring the land in a high-traffic location will run you $500,000 to $2 million. The physical construction of the store adds another $1 to $3 million. But the most shocking expense, the one that catches new investors completely off guard, is buried out of sight.
Underground.
Yes. Installing the underground storage tanks for the fuel will cost you between $300,000 and $750,000.
I cannot wrap my head around that number. $750,000 just to bury a metal tube in the dirt. Why is a hole in the ground so incredibly expensive?
Because of the Environmental Protection Agency and, well, the mechanics of modern environmental safety. In the old days, owners would just bury single-walled steel tanks. Over time, those tanks would rust, crack, and silently leak gasoline into the surrounding soil, eventually contaminating entire town water supplies.
Oh, wow. That's a disaster.
Yeah, so today the laws are incredibly strict. These aren't just tubes anymore. They are highly complex containment systems.
So how do they actually work now to prevent that?
The EPA mandates double-walled construction. Think of it like a ship's hull with a bilge alarm. You have an inner tank holding the fuel and an outer tank acting as a secondary barrier.
Okay.
The interstitial space, the gap between the two walls, is constantly monitored by sophisticated underground sensors. The system monitors pressure and liquid levels electronically. If there is even a microscopic breach in the inner wall, the pressure drops and an alarm is triggered in the store before a single drop of gasoline ever touches the earth. They also require advanced vapor recovery systems to capture explosive fumes.
So I'm essentially burying a highly regulated double-walled submarine under the concrete.
That's a good way to put it. And this raises an important question about liability. Those tanks are the monster underground that keep station owners awake at night.
I bet.
According to EPA records, there have been over 583,000 confirmed releases, meaning leaks, from underground tanks historically. There are still 54,000 sites across the country that require active, ongoing cleanup.
Cleaning up thousands of gallons of gasoline that has seeped into the earth cannot be cheap.
Not at all. The average cost to clean up a standard leak is about $154,000. But if that fuel seeps deep enough to hit the groundwater table, the remediation involves drilling wells and pumping out contaminated water for years. That cleanup cost can easily skyrocket into the millions of dollars.
That is absolutely terrifying from an investment standpoint. Let's say I find a deal on an older existing station. If the guy who owned it before me cut corners and let his tanks slowly leak for a decade, and I buy the property who is on the hook for the millions in cleanup?
You are.
Me.
Yep. The environmental liability transfers with the property. Soil contamination from a previous owner instantly becomes your financial nightmare the moment you sign the deed. That is why Phase 1 and Phase 2 environmental assessments, where engineers actually drill core samples of the dirt before you buy, are strictly non-negotiable.
Okay, so I am spending up to $5 million to build a retail store just so I can bury a massive ticking financial time bomb in the dirt, absorb decades of potential environmental liability, all the hopes of tricking a commuter into buying a lukewarm taquito.
Pretty much.
But let's say you do it. You survive the EPA regulations, you find the capital, you bury the submarine. How do you guarantee those coffee-buying customers actually pull into your specific lot? Because if the lot is empty, the whole model collapses.
It comes down to the golden rule of retail real estate, which is site selection. You cannot just put a gas station anywhere and expect the siren song of gasoline to draw people in. You need a location with an average daily traffic count of 30,000 to 50,000 cars.
Okay.
But here's the critical nuance. Raw traffic volume isn't enough. Access is everything. Human behavioral psychology is inherently lazy when driving.
I mean, if I can't easily swing my car into the lot without waiting for 3 lanes of traffic, I'm just going to keep driving.
Exactly. For example, a simple concrete median in the middle of the road blocking left-hand turns can cut your potential traffic capture by half. Drivers simply will not sit at a light to make a U-turn just to get gas.
No way.
They will drive an extra mile to the next station on the right side of the road. You absolutely need corner locations, ideally at signalized intersections, so cars naturally stop and have time to look at your brightly lit snack aisles. And you need strong anchor traffic generators nearby, things like highway on-ramps or large employers that guarantee a steady stream of thirsty, hungry drivers.
So what does this all mean? When you combine the site location, the millions in upfront costs, the environmental anxiety, and the high-margin coffee, that's the final math. If I run a great high-traffic station, what do I actually get to take home?
Let's run the numbers on a healthy, mid-sized suburban station. Let's say you are pumping a very solid 100,000 gallons of gas a month. Your total monthly revenue, the actual money flowing into the register from all sources, might look like $461,000.
Nearly $500,000 a month in revenue. On paper, you look rich.
Until the bills come due. Your operating expenses, wages for your clerks, those massive electricity bills for the canopy lights, the credit card swipe fees to the bank, ongoing pump maintenance, and environmental insurance eat up about $42,500.
Okay, $42,000.
Then you have to subtract your property loan payment and equipment depreciation, which is another $25,000.
Let me do the math in my head here. Out of $461,000 in revenue, subtracting the operating expenses and the loan, what is the actual net profit?
$10,981 a month.
That is less than a 3% net margin.
Yep.
You're moving nearly $500,000 of highly explosive product, managing a complex retail operation, just to clear the equivalent of a mid-level corporate salary.
It is a volume game of pennies. But here's the ultimate kicker, the mathematical equation that proves the entire thesis we've discussed today. Remember earlier when we established that the fuel gross profit is roughly 30 cents a gallon?
Yeah.
If you pump 100,000 gallons, your gross profit on the fuel alone is $30,000.
Okay, $30,000 from the glass.
But your basic operating expenses just to keep the lights on and pay the clerks are $42,500. That means if the convenience store inside did not exist, if you only sold gas and nothing else, your station would literally lose $12,500 every single month.
Wow. The convenience store doesn't supplement the gas station. It is the gas station. The gas is a massive, incredibly expensive loss leader.
A gas-only station is economically non-viable in the modern era. This is why top operators treat fuel as pure bait. They manage their break-even points obsessively, they invest heavily in high-quality food programs, and they launch tech-driven loyalty apps to keep you coming back for breakfast sandwiches. They know beyond a shadow of a doubt that the fuel brings the customer onto the concrete, but the store makes the money that keeps the business alive.
So to wrap up this deep dive, the next time you pull up to a pump, watch those numbers spinning on the digital dial. Remember that you aren't just buying gas. You are participating in a razor-thin, high-stakes retail trap. A trap involving million-dollar underground submarines, cutthroat penny price wars based on behavioral psychology, and massive banking fees, designed entirely to get you to walk through those sliding glass doors and buy a 90% margin cup of coffee.
It really is a masterclass in retail misdirection.
And it leaves me with one final kind of wild thought for you to mull over. If fuel is truly just a low-margin advertisement, a physical billboard, just to get you in the door for a $5 coffee and an 80% margin bag of chips. What happens to this business model next? What happens when operators start using other loss leaders? Could we eventually see a future where gas stations start selling fuel completely at cost? Or even at a slight loss, just to absolutely guarantee you walk through those glass doors instead of driving to the competitor across the street? Something to think about the next time you hear that pump click off. Thanks for joining us on this deep dive.